All right, welcome back everybody to the poker model hand breakdown. Today we're going to learn about how to just still make a fold even though your hand might improve on the river. You don't want to get greedy and kind of like abandon your whole plan and the reason why you were doing the things you were doing. You want to make sure you're sticking to that. So I have ace-9 of spades sitting under the gun +1. The blinds are 50, 100. I have 6,000 chips, which means I have 60 big blinds running through that same process again to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on. In this situation, I have 2 cards over 7, and so I'm allowed to come into the pot. Another criteria that this hand would fall under would be any ace. So for more than one reason, I kind of have the go-ahead to play this hand. So coming into a pot, I always min-raise the blind. This allows me to take control of the pot and also kind of disguises my hand. I could really have a lot of things here. I would do this with pocket aces. I would do this with Jack-10 suited. I would do this with ace-9 suited, obviously. So let's see what happens around the table. I've made my move. I have to look at the next action to determine what to do after. So the table folds around to the button, who calls a 200, and as he's calling, I right away look at his stack. He has 5,050 chips, which is 50 big blinds, still a large stack, so it's unlikely, unless we hit a big hand or there's some big bluff happening, that the two of us will get all in this hand. But let's see who else or what else happens before we get to the flop here. All right, and there's another call from the big blind, who has 4,400 chips behind him. So now we have 650 in the pot, a couple of medium to large size stacks, and the action checks over to me. And just like with any other hand, I qualify. So in this situation, I have what we would call a bad hand. It's third pair or worse, because all I have here is ace high. A good hand in this situation would be pocket fives, pocket queens, pocket kings, king, queen, king 5, or queen 5. Those are all the good hands. Some mediocre hands, which are hands we would check and try to see more cards with and see if we can improve, would be top pair like a king, middle pair like a queen, open-ended straight draw like Jack-10, and even in this case with some larger stacks, pocket aces for us would qualify as a mediocre hand, and we'll get into more on that later. So anyways, in this case, I just have a bad hand. So with bad hands, we're going to just bet to try to win the pot right now. If there's more than one player on our left, then we would check and kind of give up on this hand. But because I only have one player that can call behind me, I can make a bet and see if he folds or not and still have position against the other player. So I make the bet of 325, which is half the pot, pretty average size bet. And I get what I wanted from the button. The button folds, and the big blind actually calls. So at this point, I'm pretty much saying, okay, I've lost the hand. There's not a lot I'm going to do here. Sure, there's a possibility he has a draw and we can check it all the way down, but I don't like to continue to fire that second bullet, to fire the third bullet. I just don't think it's necessary. I think there are better spots and better ways to win pots without having to kind of bluff your whole tournament to get there. So the turn comes and it's a jack, and my opponent checks to me. And again, my hand is still bad. You know, if an ace came, or, you know, really just an ace, then I might be thinking, all right, I could have the best hand if he had just one pair on the board, which I would check and try to see the river with. But the fact that the jack comes, the only card that will make me a straight is a 10, which is an inside straight draw, which we would qualify as bad. I'm just going to give up on the hand even though I have position. So I'm going to make the check behind. Again, my stack is at 54 big blinds approximately. I can find a better spot later. So now I check, and the river is a 9. So my hand improves to one pair of 9s, and my opponent bets into me. Now I think a lot of players make a mistake here of thinking that there's a possibility my opponent's bluffing. There's a possibility he had a 5. Maybe he had pocket 10s or something, and he's just making some kind of bet here to either get me off the hand, or maybe he thinks that the 5 is good, or, you know, he hasn't really played back too hard at me. Maybe he was just calling with some weird draw on the flop and it happened to hit a 9 on the river and I'm beating that. But the point here is those are all pretty unlikely scenarios, and the fact that I hit my 9 really shouldn't change the fact that I'm going to just fold and be out of the hand. So that's what I do here. I lose, but really all that I did was make a continuation bet and give up on the hand. I happened to improve on the river, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough, and it really wasn't even worth seeing if I had the best hand or not and wasting those 6 to 7 big blinds that my opponent bet on the river. So the main point of this video here is just to remind you that some things are always going to be consistent. We're always going to qualify. We're always going to know what we have, know our stack size. That's going to happen on every single hand that we play. But little things like this, little variations are going to occur also. It didn't matter if an 8 came on the river or a 9 came on the river. And I just want everyone to be aware that you have to remain disciplined and know that even if you slightly improve along some points of the hand, you have to kind of stick to the original plan, which was to bet because you had a bad hand, try to get them to fold. And if you're not improving by too much, then you kind of have to give up on the hand and be out. So don't waste your chips calling that last river bet just because you improved. As always, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. For more training tools and Texas Hold'em advice, subscribe to our YouTube channel or pay us a visit at thepokermodel.com to see our weekly articles, bi-weekly podcasts, and other episodes of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. Until next time.